the biggest trend that I don't think is ever going to go away is that market conditions and selling environments change on a yearly or maybe every 18-month basis in such a way that demands salespeople and even just revenue practitioners to update and modernize their skills, right? So like the skill set you needed to be successful in 2021 looks very different than what you need in 2024. Now, there are some timeless things, right? Like people buy for business value and what have you, but there's a lot of things that have changed, right? Like everybody at the time of this recording is familiar with like the new rules of Google and these email providers where you can't just mass blast a bunch of cold emails. That changes the skill set that you need to generate pipeline. Most of us did not have to learn how to sell to CFOs or sell through a champion to a CFO a couple of years ago. Like maybe some of us did if you're selling large enterprise deals, but I was just talking to a VP of sales the other day, and it's like a $50,000 deal. And this is a big company. Their board needs to approve anything over $50,000. That kind of skill and the business acumen and the business case development you need, very different than what you needed. So there's this guy at HubSpot. He's one of the most successful leaders there. His name's David Katz. He's VP of corporate sales, very well respected. You know, HubSpot's last I checked, $20 or $30 billion company. And he actually came up with that quote that I led with. He said, market conditions and selling environments and sales motions tend to change faster than most salespeople and leaders can evolve and reinvent their skills to stay modern and successful. I don't know if there's an easy answer to this, because the real answer is you need two things. You need deep insight into what your market and your buyers care about, to the point where your cold email or outreach message or whatever you're doing feels like a page from their diary, right? It feels like you're peering into their soul as far as like the pain that you're speaking to. That's one thing you need. The second thing you need, depending on the market you sell to, is a pretty high degree of business acumen. And most people aren't going to like the answer that I just gave, because they're expecting a tip or a tactic or a strategy that they can just take and go use. And I wish that was the case. Maybe there's somebody who is far smarter than me, which is a pretty low bar to begin with, who can come up with something really tactical that people can use. But like the foundation of getting this right, being able to do this quickly and at scale in a way that still resonates, is knowing your market better than you know the back of your hand, because then, you know, you can speak to their pain. Most reps, as a result of not knowing their buyers very well, say the company name in their email like 6 or 7 times, and they're talking about their product. And the best outreach attempts are, they don't even talk about what you do or even the benefits. They articulate the pain better than your buyer can themselves. And then they ask if you want to have a conversation about potentially solving some of this. So not the answer people probably wanted, but I also like to say that I give you the answer you might not want to hear, even if it's, you know, as long as it's the best answer. SMS is great if you're already in a deal cycle, right? I make it a habit of grabbing the, you know, emails of, or not emails, but like, you know, cell phones of people that I start working with, and I text them immediately, and I'm not gun shy about doing that. I get a little bit of personal queasiness about like using texts as an outbound, like prospecting strategy. And it kind of depends on your market, right? That's the first filter, is like some markets are receptive to that and some aren't. Personally, I'm not super receptive to that when like somebody's reaching out to me. And the reason is like my text message inbox is like the last bastion of things that are not already bombarded, right? Like my email inbox, total mess. My voicemail, it's been full for probably 6 years now. I get call after call after call, and like text is like kind of my sacred spot where I'm interacting with my friends and family, and like serious deal making. So that's my take on it. I don't, claim to say there's one right way or wrong way when it comes to that. I'm more so just speaking from personal preference. And like the first thing you should answer is like, what does my market like or not like? Right? That's the dictating answer. Depends on what kind of engagement we're talking about, right? Like there's engagement during a discovery call, there's engagement during a demo call, there's keeping them engaged throughout a sales cycle, there's getting engagement during a prospecting thing. So I'll talk about like stuff that happens during the deal cycle, because we already kind of talked about the prospecting piece. I think the answer is different depending on the stage of sales cycle, right? If you want engagement during a discovery call, your biggest risk is asking a bunch of questions that your buyer does not feel like you've earned the right to ask. And so there are usually things you need to do to warm up a buyer, especially a cold buyer, before you can start pummeling them with a bunch of questions, which I advocate for. You just got to do it in the right way. And so one of those is telling a customer story that focuses more on the pain the customer was experiencing before you did business with them, and telling it in a way that your buyer can see themselves in. And you tell that narrative, and then you stop and you say, anyway, enough about our customers. Tell me about your situation. And if your story was good, they're like leaning forward and they're like, that's exactly what we're dealing with. And you have a very engaged, productive discovery call at that point. Demo calls, it's a little bit different, right? You already hopefully understand their problem, and now you're presenting those solutions. And so there's a couple tips I would give. One is to solve their problem exactly, right? Most salespeople show everything when it comes to their product, and that creates a lot of disengagement, because like what buyers are thinking when you show them anything is, what problem does this solve, and do I have it? So when you're solving exactly, that means each feature you show should align with a pain point that they had previously shared with you. And you solve in a one-to-one way, and then you stop, knowing that you're leaving a lot out of your product. So that's one. Another one is like awkwardly pausing for uncomfortable amounts of time during a demo, right? If you go through like a piece of your demo flow and then like you just stop and let them kind of like gather their thoughts, people are really uncomfortable with silence and they will fill the void many times. You've got to be the one who is more comfortable with silence sometimes if you want people engaging. Otherwise, it's going to feel like you're demoing a brick wall. So hopefully those tips are helpful. I teach a closing motion that's kind of like 3 parts. One is to understand the path to signature. One is to influence, or the next one is to influence the path to signature. And then the third is constantly confirm the path to signature. So here's what that looks like in kind of short form. When a buyer comes to you and expresses a strong intent to buy, maybe they ask for a contractor proposal, or they start negotiating with you on price, or they ask for a customer reference, your next move should be, let's say we figured all of that out and you were happy with it. What would still have to happen between that point and us actually deciding to work together? And so that aligns with like the first step of, I want to understand what the path to signature is, because if they start grinding me down on price, and if I agree to it and I've got 6,000 hurdles I still need to jump, I just wasted everybody's time by even engaging in that negotiation. So that's one. Now, when you start to understand the path to signature, you want to do more than just understand it. You want to start to influence it, right? That is the essence of being a sales professional, is influencing things in your favor that benefit the other person. And there are a couple of questions salespeople can ask to start pushing a closing motion without being overbearing. One is, if your deal is already on track to close on the timeline that you want it to, then your closing motion question is, what would derail us from getting this done by January 31st from here, right? You're looking for risk. You're already on track and you're seeking the risk. You're seeking the things that would make what you already plan on doing no longer true. Now, for deals that don't look awesome when it comes to timeline, right? Maybe there's a chance that it could close in January or whatever, quarter end or month end or whatever, but like it's pretty tight. Now your question is not seeking risk. There's already risk in spades. It would be weird to be like, what would derail us from getting this done? They'd be like, are you not listening to me? Everything. We have a procurement process. We have a legal. This is probably not going to get done. So instead, your closing motion question is, I know this could be kind of tight, but under what conditions would need to be true for us to move forward on January 31st? And then you just silence yourself. And so instead of seeking risk in that situation, you are seeking what conditions need to be met, and is it possible for us to take actions to ensure those conditions are met? And then the final piece is just confirming things, right? It's every meeting you have at like the tail end of a deal where you're in your closing motion, you should be starting that meeting with what's changed since last we talked. Because if something's changed, that means that deal is probably going to slip unless you have some time to act on it.